friends? It's Monday, so it's that time again. Welcome to Just My Opinion. This episode this week, we dive deep into the debacle that was Saturday night in Minneapolis. I was live on scene. Fortunately, it was freezing, but it was always good to get up back into Minneapolis. So again, let's recap. Huskers lose 34-7 in a game that wasn't even that close, in my opinion. I did go up there, me and Chris Schmidt with Hail Varsity. We drove up. We did 3 different shows up there at the Graduate. The people up there were absolutely awesome. They had a great time up there. They took great care of us. And it's always good to go back into a place where I played some ball. Lots of Viking love still. I loved Minneapolis. So it was awesome. I got to do on the power trip. Thanks to those guys that jumped on the power trip. Morning show on K-Fan. Talked a lot of crap because I thought the Huskers were going to play better. I just did. I thought that we were going to get a better performance out of Big Red than we got. I thought that Frost was going to have these boys ready to go, and it just wasn't there. So we're going to look into maybe why it wasn't there, what was lacking. Lots of questions about this week. So if you're in the chat, I want you to ask questions because I have probably just as many of you, and I've been trying to find some answers because I want to give you guys, to the best of my ability, the answers. So again, this is a live interactive show. If you have questions, ask. I'll do my best to answer, and we're going to continue to move forward on this year because that's all you can do if you're a Husker fan, is continue to move forward, digest why, and move on. The field experience was interesting. That was my first game on the field this year, and I can tell you this, the Huskers did not have the energy to win an on-the-road game. It's that simple. From what I was there for, I did not feel the energy on the sideline. You could feel PJ Fleck's row the boat energy. As lame as row the boat is, and as gimmicky, and I understand it has a meaning back to his son that passed away, but it is now their row the boat football mantra, and I think it's a gimmick, but he's got those boys bought in. Minnesota's boys in year 3 of Fleck's system are bought in, and it showed. Do I think that all of Frost boys are not bought in, and it showed? Possibly. I think that might be one of the reasons why it was not as great as it could have been for us on Saturday night. I think that was one of the reasons why PJ Fleck is a good coach, even though I do not think him is a good person. And sometimes I have trouble separating the two, which is why I don't always say that I respect PJ Fleck. But as a coach and as what he did with those players Saturday night, he had them ready to roll and they dominated Big Red. So quick rundown on what we're going to go through the show. That was just my initial real quick thought. I had to get that out of my chest. We're going to go over the 4 keys to victory as we do every single week, see how the Huskers stacked up there. I'm going to give you some key takeaways from the game, what I thought was good, what I thought was bad. And the questions. You had lots of questions on Twitter, some Instagram. I want to dive into those. I want to answer your questions live here, see what your guys' thoughts are. And then I'm going to give my State of the Huskers address. I know, play on words, but I want you guys to understand. I don't like to just give my opinion. I don't like to just say, I think we're bad because of XYZ. I like to look at the numbers and the product that's put on the field, give that to you guys. Maybe you don't know it yet. And then I will try and break that down as to why I think what I think. I don't just spit stuff out because of my expertise and everything. I like to put numbers and I like to put data behind my opinion. So it is just my opinion, but I also like to give an informed opinion based off numbers. So I will give my State of the Huskers, where I think they are in the Big Ten, ranking them from top to bottom, seeing where they match up offensive, defensively, special teams, and stats-wise. And I will try to explain to you every stat as I go down why it's so important, and we'll move on from there. I'll say, we'll talk about, can we make it to a bowl? I used to say eight wins was extremely possible for this team. After that performance that I've seen against Northwestern and now against Minnesota, a bowl game seems far and far more like a hope for us right now. Can we get to 6 wins? So we'll take a look at where we stack up in that regard. We'll take a look at our opponents moving forward. We got 5 games left in the season. And we're going to take a look, where can we find those 2 more wins? We'll look and see what those records are coming up. And we'll talk about what you can do on a bye week. I've had bye weeks. Bye weeks are extremely important. We'll talk about what you can do on a bye week to reset your body, reset your mind, and get yourself ready to go for the back half of the season. The Husker bye week finds it a perfect time for this Husker team because right now this Husker team's at a crossroad. They can fight back or they can roll over and die. It's really that simple, and that's what we're going to see from this team when they rock out there in 12 days now against Indiana. And then lastly, as we always do, we'll give out our game balls, and I'll give you guys a quick update on my NFL career for 2019. So let's jump right into it here. 4 keys to victory every single week. We talk about them: penalties, rushing yards, third down conversions, and turnovers. If you can win 3 of the 4, you're most likely 90% of the time going to win the game. You win 2 of the 4, you're looking at about 50%. And if you win 0 of them, you don't win the game. Maybe 1%. I'll give you a 1% chance of winning the game if you actually win only once. So let's look at the penalties. Have been plaguing Nebraska since week 1. I mean, it kills me because they're all unforced penalties. So Nebraska has 5 penalties for 33 yards. Minnesota, 4 penalties for 42 yards. Edge, Minnesota. But what really, really sucks about Nebraska's penalties is if you look at them, 4 of those penalties, 4 of the 5 penalties were undisciplined, unforced penalties. And what I mean by that is they weren't judgment calls. Like, you can have a holding, and a holding call be like, I don't know, maybe yes, maybe no. You can have a hands to the face, you can have a pass interference, and all those calls are judgment calls. We had 12 men in formation out of a timeout. 12 men in formation out of a timeout on offense. That cannot happen. We had an illegal formation on a punt. And then we had a false start after a big play on the perimeter. And then the biggest one of all, guys, the game-changing penalty, in my opinion, was the illegal block in the back by Noah, which takes away 1st and goal on the 4-yard line, only down by 7 points, and we punt. We don't even get a shot to kick a field goal. We don't get a shot to score. We straight up punt. So those penalties, they have to stop. And I don't know how you stop them, because I guarantee you Frost isn't saying, hey, Noah, push that guy in the back. Or he's not saying, hey, line up the right way. Don't line up the right way. Coaching, I guarantee you coaching is getting them lined up the right way. It is now them taking practice to the game. And that has to start happening. It has to start carrying over. If it doesn't, we're just going to keep getting embarrassed like this, especially when you have big plays that lead to scoring opportunities, and then the penalties just wipe it clean. They just wipe it clean because on offense, we're not good enough to overcome even a 5-yard penalty at the moment. No starting quarterback, banged up wide receiver, and running backs that don't really want to hit the hole right now. If you can't tell, I'm a little fired up this week. That game really pissed me off. It just did. I'm a little fired up this week. It's something that I hate seeing. It's one thing to get beat by a very talented Ohio State team. It's another thing to get beat by, in my opinion, a average to above average Minnesota team. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they'll run the table. Maybe they'll be 8-0 facing Penn State, and they'll knock Penn State off at home. Maybe they'll knock Wisconsin off at home. But in my opinion, that is an average Minnesota team that we should stack up and compete against, not get blown out against. So moving right ahead here, rushing yards. First of all, Nebraska had 43 rushes for 151 yards. And I'm going to go ahead and subtract 30 of those yards, because 30 of those yards came from Brody Belt at the end of the game when nobody cared. So in all actuality, we had 131 rushing yards. 131. That is awful. It's not even like, oh, that's not bad. That is straight awful. Especially when Noah Vedral, your backup quarterback, is your leading rusher. 15 rushes for 49 yards. Guys, I don't even know what to say about that. It's that bad. When you look at Minnesota, 49 rushes, 322 yards, averaging 6.6 yards per carry. They almost had 300-yard rushers. They had Rodney Smith at 18 rushes for 135 yards, who we talked about last week, and we said was going to be a problem, and we needed to take him away. We didn't. Shannon Brooks comes back, 13 rushes, 101 yards. And then you have Ibrahim comes in for 15 rushes for 84 yards. They literally plug and play at running back. It didn't matter. And you want to know what's even crazier? They ran 3 plays. They ran split zone, strong side zone, and weak side zone. It's like Novocaine, right? Give it long enough, it's going to work. And they just kept doing it, and they just kept doing it. So let's look at what went wrong in Nebraska's rush game real quick. I don't have a guest this week, so I'm going to go ahead and spend a little bit more time on these keys and really kind of dive a little deeper into them. When your leading rusher is your quarterback, Scott Frost touched on in his presser. He says our leading rusher on our team right now is Adrian Martinez, who's their quarterback. And then Noah was your leading rusher. That's because you're getting no production from your running backs and your O-line in what you want to be your physical run game. That's why. So when you're quarterback, that's based off reads, that's based off pulls, that's based off there's nothing there. He pulls the ball down and runs. So we can't have a leading rusher be a quarterback anymore if we want to get this running game started. Scott's quote, they got to rely on physicality. We have to rely on scheme to make rushing yards. It's the most honest thing I've ever seen. You want to talk about physicality? That's running 3 run plays the whole game and not caring if it's 3rd and 8 and running the same run play you just ran on 1st and 2nd down and getting a 1st down. That's what Minnesota did to us. We have to scheme. We have to put guys in motion, running left, running right, trying to be fancy with the reads, splitting guys. And we still can't make it because we cannot rely on the first front 5 to just mash the guy in front of them, move them into the linebacker, and get yards that way. We can't right now. And whether that's a technique error, whether that's fundamental error, I definitely don't think it's scheme error because you know what? Zone is zone, power is power, and you block them up. You count them, 1, 2, 3, you have 1, 2, 3. And we are scheme-wise, I don't see a lot of mental errors on the film. I don't see a lot of mental errors as I go back and rewatch the game. I don't see it. I see us getting whooped up front physically. When we get whooped up front physically, you cannot win a run game. It's impossible. And the other side of it is our perimeter blocking. If we're going to be an edge running team, if we're going to get out there with Mo, and if we're going to get out there with Wandale, who I hope's okay, but we have to have receivers that are going to stick on blocks. Minnesota's receivers stuck on blocks. They took Lamar, they took Boodle, they took on Cam Taylor, Britt, Dismuke. They went in there and threw their head in those guys, which is why a lot of times you saw the running back not even getting hit by the safety till 12 or 11 yards because they were getting blocked. Our receivers are getting lazy with their blocks, lazy with their feet. There's even times in these little swing screens when you're not seeing them get out there and put belly on belly and just drive their feet. If your receiver, just get in the way. Just get in the way. We're not expecting to go out there and dump a guy. You want to know who's great at that? Stanley Morgan. Guess where he's at? He's in the league. He got fined $28,000 last week because he's an aggressive blocker. Block. We need the wide receivers. The run game is not the front 5 in the back. It's all 11 guys. It is. A lot of the blame falls on the front 5 in the back, but if you don't have all 11, you're not going to have a good run game. Going back to the O-line, guys, you have to dent. When I say dent, a defensive lineman to a linebacker, I mean displace. Move them. Take them from point A to point B and make the linebacker then have to decide which side to run around. Right now, we're getting stalemated at the line of scrimmage, which then no movement. So then a lineman has to then come off late to a linebacker who now has a 2-way go, and then we get split at the point of attack. That's what's happening up front in the run game. It's happening with Juergens and Wilson. It's happening with Hymas and Hickson and Bando and Hickson and Farnett. It goes across the board. That's what's happening in the run game. We're not getting movement, and we're not getting the linebackers. It's just part of it, guys. It's just part of it. Speaking of, I think Hickson got benched, which I'm sad to see. I thought he was a young player. He struggled in the first half mightily. That being said, Brock Bando, hats off to him. He came in and played extremely well in the second half. I want to see more of Brock Bando. I thought he added a little spark in the run game. I thought he was very solid in pass protection. I know he's a tackle, but if you're a tackle that can play guard, you can play in the league for a while. So I want to see if he can do it. I want to see if he can continue to move up on it, and we're going to need them. Let's look at our rushers. So again, Brody Belt was our second leading rusher, 4 carries for 29 yards, and all of those came in the fourth quarter. Mills had 1 carry in the first half, which I don't fully understand. He ended up with 9 carries, 28 yards, and a touchdown. And then Mo Washington, 6 carries, 30 yards, and he is scared to run in between the tackles. That's the only way I can see it. He refuses to hit the hole. He had a lot of success early on in this year, getting handoffs, bouncing them to the outside, making a guy miss, and going the distance. We are now in Big Ten play. We are now in bad weather games. We are now in grinded out yards. Every single yard counts. Every single yard counts. And he's still trying to bounce it and go for the big run. I don't care if there's a safety standing in the hole. Hit 4, get hit by the safety, fall for 5. 2nd and 5 is much better than 2nd and 11. And that's where we're at right now, is we need every yard we can get. And Mo Washington, just for whatever reason, doesn't seem to want to just pound it up the middle. I want to see more Dedrick Mills. I want to see more Brody Belt. I want to see whoever is willing to put their head down and say, screw it, I'm getting 5. Whether there's a linebacker or not, I want 5. I want to hit it between the tackles, hit it 5, fall for 6. Because guess what? You just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. And then one pops. Look at the Minnesota tape. That's all they did. They just kept staying with it, staying with it, staying with it. And it popped. And it popped. So enough on that rant. Let's move to our defense. Everything I just said about what the Huskers have to do in order to run the ball, guess who did it? The Minnesota offensive line. That was the best run blocking I've seen out of a Minnesota offensive line since I've played in college. They absolutely dominated our front seven. Absolutely dominated them. And they did it because they used misdirection, very simple misdirection, to freeze our linebackers, and then they ran off the ball with speed. They beat our defense with speed and physicality. Coach Flex said it in his post-game interview. We knew if we could make their linebackers run laterally, we could beat them. Because the strength of our linebackers is they're big, strong, downhill. They're downhill guys. Well, guess what? In order to stop a downhill guy, you freeze him. How do you freeze him? It's called split zone. Here, I'm going to really try and do my best here to explain a very easy concept of split zone. You have a tight end that lines up to the strength behind the line of scrimmage. So you have your front 5, and you have a tight end that lines up to your strength behind the line of scrimmage. The zone play and all zone action will be going to the right. Say the tight end's lined up on the right. The linemen are all moving to the right. This one tight end comes back to the left, split zone. He comes back across the ball and blocks the free defensive end. And that freezes the linebackers for just a little bit, just a half a step, that they can't have their read of just downhill in the gap, which then allows that running back to have a step on those guys, which is what happened time after time after time. Because then they'd line up in that exact same formation, tight formation, linebacker or tight end to your strength, and then they just run it out the front side. They just run it out the front side. They'd have the lead blocker be the tight end instead of coming back across. Or they'd line up like this, again, same formation, and then they just run it this way and have the tight end be on the backside. But every single time, it was out of the same formation. They didn't get fancy. They just lined up and said, screw it. We're better than you. And they were on Saturday night. Do I think that their physicality, if we played them 9 out of 10 times, they'd always be better than us? Probably not. But on Saturday night, when it counted the most, they were. And that's when it mattered. That's when it mattered. And they showed up and they did what mattered, and they beat us up front. The other thing that's bad with our rush defense is we are undisciplined in our gap soundness. We just are. Gap sound defense wins rushing football games. And too many times, a defensive line would be getting reached to the play, and he'd take the easy way out and swim around the backside, which left a huge hole for the cutback. And it happened time and time again. You have to stay in your gap. Whether you're a linebacker or a defensive lineman or a safety, gap sound defense is where you have to be. And from Northwestern and Minnesota, we have not been gap sound because we have undisciplined guys doing their own thing. Not, again, I say running the ball is 11 guys, stopping the run is 11 guys. But it starts up front. And it starts up front with no creases and making them earn every single yard. We're giving away too many free yards right now on defense. We're just giving it to them. We're handing it to them with bad technique and bad fundamentals when it comes to gap integrity. That's the problem. That's where we're at with it. So I want to see us fix that in the bye week because it's very fixable. This is not an effort thing. This is not a crack the moon and get to the moon to fix it. It's very simple. Just stay in your gap. Learned it since you played defense since day one. Stay in your gap and set the edge. We don't have edge setters, guys. We don't have edge setters. I'm sorry, Davis is not an edge setter. Taylor's a young player still figuring out how to set the edge. They knew we didn't know how to set the edge, which is why they kept running to it. That's why you saw in the second half Ben Stilley playing outside linebacker because we were just trying to stop the bleeding. But at that point, it was too late. We need edge setters. We need edge setters. We need linebackers that are very quick with their eyes because guess what Wisconsin does? Exact same thing, but much, much better. Much, much better. Guys, if we play the same defensive style that we played against Minnesota against Wisconsin, we will get ran out of the stadium. And I mean ran out of the stadium Ohio State like. But it'll be a lot uglier because it won't be throwing the ball over. It'll be because they ate a 9-minute drive and went 98 yards running nothing but power and zone. That's where we're at. That's where we're at when it comes to stopping the run and poor tackling. We had poor tackling again. Mo Berry led the team in tackles. He also led the team in missed tackles. I'm looking for him to step up. He's a leader of this defense. He's a captain. He has to play better. He's the heart and soul. I've said it since day one. He has to play better in missed tackles. So guys, to put it all in a nutshell, they out-physicaled us. There was some scheme stuff that they did, but it was simple scheme stuff. And Scott said it in his postgame. We knew what they were going to run, and they still could do it. And that is disheartening when you're a coach. It's disheartening when you're a player. But when you're an offensive lineman, it is the best feeling in the world. And I want to get our offensive line to feel like Minnesota's offensive line did on Saturday night. 131 yards rushing is unacceptable for a Nebraska football team. It just is, guys. It just is unacceptable. Just as 322 yards given up for a black shirt defense is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So before I move on to third downs, I want to get to we have a couple questions over here. One guy asked, do you think the team will step up and finish the year like they did last year? I really think they will. But guess what? We'll know by Indiana. This is a crossroad. We're in a fork. If they come out flat against Indiana, expect a lot of flat the rest of the year. They come out their hair on fire and beat a good Indiana football team, then we'll know how they feel. We'll know what this defense feels. We'll know what this offense feels and what they did on the bye week to get their minds right. Let's look into third down. Our third key to victory is third downs. For third down, Nebraska was 6 of 16, 37%. We were also 0 for 4 on third downs because we don't have a kicker, so that hurts us. Flip side, Minnesota, 8 of 13, 61% on third down. They averaged 7.3 yards a carry, so that's why those third downs, why they're so high. It was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 1. You look at Nebraska's third downs, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 20, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 7. We didn't have any third and shorts. When you don't have third and shorts, third down conversions are extremely tough, especially with a struggling offense with a backup quarterback. We don't have good success on first and second down, which then leads to really, really hard times on third downs. They had great success. They had over 20 first downs. 20 first downs. They had a 3rd and 9, as Team Diesel brings up. They have a 3rd and 9. We stop them. We do our job on first and second down. And guess what? They run the exact same play they ran on second down. And it scoots out the left side for 11 yards. That's an attitude. That's a mindset that says 3rd and 11. Yeah, it's a 3rd and 9. It's a passing down. Screw it. We're running it at you. And it was on their own 10. It was on their own 10 where they have to try and get some yards so they can punt. And they said, screw it. We're running the ball again. That's a mindset that Minnesota came to that game with. And that's what they took to us over and over again. Let's go to our turnovers. Turnovers, null. No turnovers. We had some fumbles. We got them back. They had some fumbles. They got them back. So that's a nil. So if you look at it, we won 0 keys. They won 3 of the keys, which gives them a 90% chance to win. And then if you don't turn the ball over, if you do or don't, it just pretty much is a 50-50 toss-up who wins if you don't turn the ball over. Let's get some key takeaways on this game before I put it to bed. One of the biggest things is we came up empty on those 2 first drives on offense. We move the ball and come away with 0 points. We come away with 0 points because of penalties. And we come away with 0 points because we can't finish. And it's been a thing all year. We can't finish in the red zone. We can't finish drives. And it's starting to really rear its ugly head. It's starting to really hurt us as an offense. And it's putting our defense in bad spots. It's putting our defense. Complementary football, guys. Offense helps the defense. Defense helps the offense. Special teams helps both. Complementary football is extremely important. I thought Noah Vedral played an incredible game for a backup quarterback. Passing, he was 14 of 23, 125 yards. Rushing, 15 of 22 for 77 yards if you take away the sacks. If you take away the sacks, he rushed for 77 yards. That's a pretty damn good day by your quarterback. And 4 sacks 4 times, not an issue, which is my next point. Pass protection is an issue. 4 sacks against a defense that I didn't think had a true pass rusher on it. Coughlin's a good player. He had a 2-sack game, but they didn't have a Chase Young. They didn't have one of those guys that was a game wrecker. I thought we were going to match up pretty good, but we just were getting pressured, whether they were sending 4, 3, 5. It didn't matter. They were getting to Noah. They were getting to Bunch, and that's an issue. And I don't know if it is a technique issue. I don't know if it is a fundamental issue, and there's even some scheme issues. For example, one of the first sacks after the big play to JD, we come out, we line up an empty formation, meaning there's 5 blockers, and we have to block the 5 most dangerous. Matt Farniak takes a step back, they blitz a guy from his inside gap, and they bring a guy off the edge. Matt's job as an offensive tackle is to protect his inside gap. That's his job. Well, he just takes a set, sees the inside guy late, tries to dive at him late, ends up blocking nobody. Both guys come free, boom, sack. That's happened a couple times this year. So my look at, and I see that, I say, okay, teams have an empty check against us. If I'm an offensive tackle, if I'm Farniak and I'm Hymas, I need to be ready for that. It's happened now multiple times. This isn't the first time you're seeing it. It happens multiple times. The multiple times, you block in, you hit it in the face, bang, throw the ball hot, game over. They don't do it again. You let them do it again. You let them get the sack off that blitz. They're going to keep coming back to it. I'm looking for us to stop letting repeat blitzes get home and stop letting them come back and bite us in the tail. So protection-wise, we need to just stiffen up. Tackles need to be stronger. They need to keep the width of the pocket. You need the front guys to keep the depth of the pocket so that quarterback back there, whether it be Adrian, Noah, McCaffrey, I don't care who's back there. I don't care if it's Joe Montana back there. They don't have a clean pocket. Our receiving game and our pass game is not going to improve because it starts with them, and that's where we need to roll with it. So moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I already talked on a little bit. The defense needs to come back, get together the gap sound. A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap. Everyone has a gap. Get back to it. I had a lot of questions that asked about, did our defense quit? Did our defense quit this week? I don't think our defense quit. I think they got fatigued. And you know why they got fatigued? Because they got the ball run up their butts. That's what happens. People a lot of time are going, oh, that defense quit. They didn't quit. You just get tired of just getting beat on over and over. And as a defensive lineman, I've played plenty that can just, by the end of a game, you can tell they're wore out. Towards an offensive lineman, we'd much rather run block than pass block. So when we just get the call, hey, we're running it, we get more energy as an offensive line. We get ready, we're roaring, we're digging our feet in, just like when it's a 2.2 minute drive, the defensive ends just want to pass rush. Flip it. So by the end of the game, our defense didn't quit. They were tired. They were beat, man. They were just physically whipped. And that's the difference. So I don't think they quit. I don't think the effort was not there. Did they come out with the energy? I don't think so. Did they still play with effort? Yes. Energy and effort are two different things. This is still also the first time I've seen a Scott Frost team that I didn't think punched back. I didn't think they punched back. I really didn't. I thought that they kind of took it. And this is the first time in 19 games under the regime of Scott Frost that I've seen that. And I don't want to see it again. I don't want, because that was Riley stuff. That was Mike Riley times. That was time for when they rolled over and they just took it yellow bellied up. Scott doesn't do that. He doesn't do it as a coach. He didn't do it as a player. And I don't expect him to allow his team to do that again. I expect him to know, even if we're getting beat, you fight back every time. My last kind of big takeaway here is how much longer do we stick with Mo Washington? I like the kid. I think he's a great kid. I don't know if he's giving it everything that he has, and I hope that he gets challenged. We've talked about it for 2 weeks. He had the suspension. He's gotten some issues. I know he has his court date this week. That's besides the point. I want to see production of Mo Washington. If he wants to be the starter, he needs to prove it. There's got to be guys climbing up his backside saying, you know what? I don't think that you can do it better than I can. And that only makes Mo better, and that makes everyone behind him better. And if that's the case, I guarantee you Scott's going to look at guys and say, who wants to be the starting running back? Because right now, it might be up for grabs. Just might be. I don't know. I'm not in those meetings. I'm not in there. I don't listen to those guys. This is just what I know from being in the player for 5 years, playing with some damn good backs at Nebraska and playing with some really good backs in the NFL. Good backs in the NFL know they're the starter, and they know that they have a short leash because a lot of running backs want to be the starters on football teams. I want to see Mills say, you know what, I love you, Mo. We're teammates. We're great. I'm going to be the starter because I'm going to do this thing better. We'll see. We'll see what happens against Indiana. Who knows? And the very last point before I put the Minnesota game to bed is I want to talk about the turning point, which we already talked about, is when we went from 1st and goal from the 4 to a punt, which then led to a defensive drive that the Minnesota Gophers drove the ball 6 plays, 5 runs, same 4 runs in a row, and took us up 14-0. And that right there, from then on, it was over. From that point, it was done. There was no going back. They didn't look back in the rearview mirror once. The doubt crept into Nebraska's mind, and I think that was really the turning point for the end of this game. So again, game ends 34-7. Probably shouldn't have even scored 7. It was pretty much against their backups there. I mean, really, it easily could have been 42-7 if that tight end doesn't drop that wide open ball. So I'll take whatever it needs to be there. But that game has to be corrected and taught from. There's a lot to learn from that film. There's a lot to learn of how things do better. And like I said, it's not splitting the atom to be better. It's simple fundamentals, it's simple techniques, and it's just doing your job, which is what the bye week's for. The bye week's to get back to those things. That is what it is for. I want to get to some of you guys' questions from the weekend that you guys sent in. One question was, why are we so quick to go away from the run? And the answer to that question is coordinators get scared. It doesn't matter the level. NFL offense, college offense, high school offense. If you don't establish that you can run the ball early, coordinators panic. They just do. They just think, oh man, here we go. It's not working. Especially if you've had year-long troubles of running the ball. Coordinators panic. When coordinators panic, they then start throwing the ball. So if we don't get good success of running the ball early, I fully see Scott going, well, can't do that this week. Got to do something else. We'll try the screen game. We'll try the quick game. We'll try some play action game. But we just can't run the ball. And that's just how coordinators are. Coordinators just, they get tight. They get scared. And they just say, screw it. We're not doing it anymore. I've seen it. We have another question. Can it physically be taught to an offense? Can physicality be taught to an offensive lineman? If so, why doesn't our lineman show it? Physicality can be taught, but there's something to be said of having that mean streak, that little bit of nasty in you. I'll tell you this. I was never the strongest guy in the weight room. Never was. Still not. I was never a 450-pound bencher. I was never over a 550-pound squatter. There's so many guys that are so much stronger than me, but I was still able to move guys. I was still able to get guys out of the move because functionally and technically and fundamentally, I made sure my game was at its top. This physicality is also just as much about being nasty and mean as much as about physically being in the right spot. Your footwork, your hand placement, your head placement, all of that goes into physicality. Yes, being big and strong and brutish helps, but guess what? I know lots of big, strong, brutish guys that I could run circles around, or I know guys that could run circles around based off the fact that functionally they just can't move. They just can't. And I'm not saying our guys can't, but there's times when I don't see us have the functional ability transferring weight room strength to field strength. Two completely different things. Weight room strength and field strength, when they go together, you get the great ones. You get the Aaron Donalds, you get the Khalil Macks, you get the Lane Johnsons, the Jason Peters. But when you get guys that can't functionally bring the squatting of 700 pounds to a pass set, you can't bring a guy that can bench 450 to using his hands the right way, none of that matters. None of that matters. And when you have young guys who are strong in the weight room, they try and go out on the field and just muscle guys, and they get tossed and they get beat by the more technically maybe not as strong guy. So I want to see us continue to get stronger because I know these kids are strong. I know Duvall, I know Jason, I know Strop, all those weight guys. Those guys are strong, but they need to find ways to functionally bring that onto the field. So I think that physicality can be taught because it is so much of a technical mindset. One other question here is, what is my pregame hype song? I always love doing a little, let's lighten the mood. It's been a tough first 30 minutes here. I promise you it might get better, it might not. I don't know, I'm still pretty fired up from Saturday. My pregame hype song would be a song, I'm a big EDM guy. So it's called Raw by Minnesota. Minnesota's the DJ. So Pepsi fan, my pregame song is Raw, but I also usually do I'm weird, I have a lot of rituals before I play a game. I listen to a full EDM set from Marshmello from 2017 Electric Forest. So I kind of would plan my pregame through that. One other question before we jump back into what I had here. It says, Jack asked, is it hard to see improvement from 2017 to now? That's concerning. I'm going to touch on that a little bit here as we keep going here, and that's a perfect segue into what we're doing. I think we have not improved. We've actually regressed a little bit on both sides of the ball. And regression is bad because as we're regressing, even if we regress just a little bit, it's like regressing a whole lot because other teams are improving. Other teams are getting better. If you stay the same or even regress a little bit, the margin of victory and the margin of error comes very big. Very big. Margin of victory is very little at the beginning of the year, and as teams improve, it's supposed to stay a little. If you stay the same and other teams are improving and you even regress, that margin's so much bigger. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that. That's what it was in Minnesota. They've gotten better. They barely beat a South Dakota State team. They barely beat a Fresno State team. They barely beat a Georgia Southern team. But they've gotten better. And then they've shown that they've gotten better by beating the crap out of a Nebraska team. Where we go in, We struggle against a Colorado team. We lose the game. We look better against an Illinois team. We look good against a Northern Illinois team. Ohio State, we really just kind of pooped the bed. Northwestern, not looking great, kind of regression. And then we go to Minnesota and get our tails kicked. We're kind of on a downward slope. We're right now, middle of the season, you need to be hitting an upward angle of getting a lot better. Tay, thank you for jumping in. Statistically, we have regressed. Yeah, statistically, we have too. That's the problem. And I want to jump into some statistics as I give my state of the Huskers address. So I thought that at this point in the season, I want to give you guys some really good numbers. Like, everything that I'm saying is great, and you can take it for, oh, he knows what he's talking about, or, oh, he's just kind of blowing smoke. But every week I look at numbers, because numbers are a product of your performance. That's what they are. And everyone's graded on performance. And so I just want to look at our offense, our defense, and our overall team just against the Big Ten. Just the Big Ten. This isn't nationally. This is not something that I'm looking at from SEC, Pac-12, ACC. Nope. Our home, the Big Ten. Where do we stack up on everything in the Big Ten? Let's look at offensively first. So here's the state of the Huskers. We're the number 10 scoring offense at 25 points per game. We're number 5 in the Big Ten in rushing. We have a total of 1,300 yards, and we're averaging around 189 yards per game. The top 3 offenses in rushing are all over 210 yards per game. So keep that in mind. We want to be a top 3 rushing team. That's what you have to strive to be every year as an offense. So top 3 rushing are over 200 yards per game. We're the number 10. Remember, there's 14. It's ranked 1 through 14. We're the 10th passing offense in the league. We got 1,464 yards passing, over 209 per game. Top 3 are over 300 yards a game. Top 2 are over 300 yards. The third place is at 285 yards a game. So you want to be top 3, you got to pass the ball. So if you just look at that, if you want to have a number of top 3 offense in the Big Ten, you have to rush the ball for over 200 yards a game, and you have to have over 300 yards passing per game. That would mean you want to have over 500 yards of total offense per game, which is what Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State have. What they have, it's what they do. That's how it is. That's what works. So we're 8th. So we're right dead smack in the middle. We're 8th for total offense in the Big Ten. Now, some negative stacks to that. We're tied for 13th, also known as dead last, because us and Rutgers are tied for 19 sacks allowed. How do you have a good passing offense? You don't sack the quarterback. You have 19 sacks, and not all of them been on the offensive line, but you can say 75% of sacks usually fall on the offensive line. That's last in the country, too, by the way, in case you were wondering. 19 sacks. And then we're 7th, so again, smack in the middle, average, smack in the middle, 7th on our third down conversions at 40%. 40%. Not bad, not great. Top 3, above 60%. Ohio State's, Wisconsin's. So offensively, we're kind of in the middle of the pack. We're so-so. We're an average offense. Let's move to the defense. Now, this is where these stats surprised me a little bit, because I thought our defense has been playing pretty good. Now, Ohio State's a bit of an outlier. Northwestern, they played solid. Minnesota, there's no outlier. We just got straight up beat. So let's look at it. We're 11th overall in defense, scoring defense. We're giving up 27 points per game. We're 11th overall in the 27th. Top 3 defenses in the Big Ten are giving up under 10 points per game. 10 points. That's a huge shift. And that's how you win games in the Big Ten. Big Ten is not the Big 12. You're not going to win games 48-42 or 52-49. That's not how you win games. That's not a winning recipe for games in the Big Ten. You win games in the Big Ten, especially in like November, 16-13, 21-17, 10-6. And that's where we're going to have to rely on our defense when we play games like in Minnesota, where you have to stop the run because you can't throw the ball. They threw the ball 8 times. 8 times. Only 8 times. They had 72 plays. I'll let you do the math. And that's because our defense couldn't stop the run. If you're a good defense, you stop the run. We're 9th overall in passing defense, 1,436 yards overall, averaging 205 yards per game. We're also allowing, over 187 yards per game rushing. Top 3 passing defenses, all under 160 yards. We're 10th in total defense, allowing over 392 yards per game. And we're tied for 7th, again, right smack dab in the middle, for sacks. We have 16 sacks on the year, which is pretty good. But we're 13th in allowing the third down conversions. So part of my keys to victory were the third downs. We are 13th, second to last, only behind Rutgers, in front of Rutgers, and 38%. 40% third down conversion rate for an offense is a fantastic day. It's a great day. You come off the field and you go into the stat room on Sunday, you're like, hey, we converted 40% of our third downs. Offensive linemen, coaches, thrilled. Defensively, you walk in there like, well, we let 40% up again. Pissed. It's a horrible number. I mean, almost 1 out of every 2 times it's third down, you're not getting off the field. Come on now. We got to be better than that. We got to be. And that's being good on first and second down and getting after the passer on third down. That's what it comes down to. So on special teams, I know, but we got to look at it because we're doing the state of all the Huskers. What does this Husker team look like right now? They're 6th in punting, 4th in punt returns, 13th in field goal, 14th in PAT, much last, and 10th in kickoff return average. A lot of our kickoff return average is really low because of the penalties that we've brought in with the kickoff overall. So when we have we're better off just taking it out. We're just better just leave it. Don't take it out, Leave it. Let it hit the end zone. That's better for us right now. Get the ball to 25. We can't start the ball at the 10 or the 8 or anything like that. Just fair catch the ball. Just fair catch it. I'm fine with that. I have no problem because right now we're outclassed on our special teams. We're holding, we're blocking in the back. We need to just get the ball to 25, start fresh, and go from there. If you look at our overall, I'm going to take some overall team stats now. We looked at the offense, we looked at the defense. We're penalties, we're 7th in the Big Ten. We have 45 total penalties, and we're averaging 6.4 penalties per game. Good teams, the top 7 teams, have less penalties because you don't beat yourself. You don't. You just don't beat yourself when you're a good team. We can only talk about the penalties but it's such a huge pivotal part of what this team is that it's become almost an identity. If you look at the Huskers and you're like, man, what does that team do? Well, they get penalized a lot. That's what nationally, that is a persona that has come for the Huskers. So we got to fix that. We got to be top 5 in that category of penalties. Our turnover margin we're 10th at minus 0.43, which means we have taken the ball away less than we've given it away. I'm happy we're at minus 0.43. We could easily be at -1, -2, and average more turnovers than we do takeaways. And luckily, the last 2 games, we haven't. If we would have had any turnovers in the last 2 games, we'd easily be at -1, -2. Penalties and fumbles, guys. They make or break a football team. This is a stat that not a lot of people talk about, but it's really important. Red zone scoring percentage. It's extremely important because we've talked about it. We've stalled a lot on drives. And the other piece is our defense has not stiffened up and allowed a really stingy red zone defense. We're 12th on offense in red zone scoring percentage. We've scored 17 of our 25 times in the red zone. We've only been in the red zone 25 times through 6 games now. 7 games. 4 and 2. 7 games. Through 4 and 3. 4 and 3. 7 games we've been in there for 25 attempts. 17. We've had 13 touchdowns and 4 field goals. A lot of that I know has to do with the fact that we don't have a kicker. I can understand that. That just means we have to score touchdowns. And that's what your goal in the red zone is anyways. If you're a defense and you're like, no, they can score a field goal, that's a win. Well, our defense is 10th, tied for 10th, with 28 attempts in the red zone. And the opposing offenses have scored 24 times. 24 times. And that's pretty much, if you get in the red zone on our defense, you're pretty much like, well, we're probably going to score. And I believe I must have missed the writing it down, but I believe it was 19 of those are touchdowns. 19 or 20 of those were touchdowns with 4 or 5 field goals. So overall, here's my state of, I've given you guys the facts. Those are all facts. Those are not my opinions. Those are facts of where we are. Through 7 games, those are statistically where we are. Overall impression as a former player, as an analyst, which I'm trying to get into here, and as a fan, I think that we are a very below average football team. And it sucks because I want us to be good. I want us to be very good. I want us to keep fighting. I want us to be there. But here's the hard piece to it. We don't have the turnaround that Scott Frost made at UCF was incredible based off the fact of the athletes that he had and what he could do with those athletes down in UCF. We don't have the same natural given athletes at Nebraska. We have to recruit them and get them here than they did down at UCF. Also, there's 3 different head coaches recruits on this football team right now. This 5th-year team, I know they played under Riley, but really those were Bo Pelini's recruits. Those were Bo Pelini's. The 5th-year seniors on this team were Bo Pelini's recruits. Then you got 4 years of Mike Riley recruits. Those recruits were sent for a pro-style offense when a 3-3-5 defense. Remember all this. We then now have 1 year of Scott Frost. We have 1 year of Scott Frost recruits. And so far, those guys are doing pretty good. But that's also a completely different offense. It's now a spread speed offense with a 3-4 defense. You have a bunch of different personnel-based recruits trying to fit one scheme, and that is hard. We talk about PJ Fleck took over that team up north 3 years ago. They took their lumps in year 2, but they've got it figured out because they have a foundation and a culture built there for 3 years. We're still building that foundation. We're still building that culture, and it starts with recruits. There's 74 redshirt freshmen or true freshmen on this roster. That's a huge number. And we need to keep that number building, but those guys need to stay with the program, keep with it, so that in 4 years, we're looking at around 60 to 50 seniors on this football team. You have 50 seniors on a football team, that's only good things that are going to happen for you. We need that. Young guys need to stay young. They need to develop. We can't have young guys on the field unless there's someone extremely special like Wandale. Wandale Robinson is a special talent, but I'm thinking more along the lines. I'm thinking that we need to keep guys like Ben Hart. I'm thinking that we need to keep guys like the polar bear that's coming in next week. Give them a year. Give them 2 years to develop. Look at what Wisconsin does and mirror that. Those big boys up at Wisconsin don't play for their first 2 or 3 years. They just lift and eat. Let's get guys that come in here and just lift and eat and just get big and strong. And then we put them out on the field and then you just reload them. You just reload them. You just have a stable of O linemen. You have a stable of D linemen that are young guys that come in, bust their tail, and move themselves forward. That's how we get better, and that's what we need. The consistency in the weight room needs to stay. We need to keep getting strong, but we need to find ways to get from strength, functionally strong, field strong, and to weight room strong. We need to combine them. We need to improve as the year goes on and not regress. And then the last thing that we need to do is we just need to get back to fundamentals, and we need to get back to basics. And I know that's a cliche, but it's so true. It's so true. That's for this team. Looking at the state of the Huskers, what do we need? What do we need for Scott Frost to be successful from a personnel standpoint? I know there's no free agency. I know you can't just go out and pick and choose and grab guys. But from a personnel standpoint, what do we need? Here is what I think. Jeremiah Sirles puts my little recruiting hat on and says, here's what this Husker team needs going forward. We need bigger offensive linemen. When I mean bigger, I mean height. I want to see some more 6'6", 6'5", 6'8" guys coming in here. We have these kind of shorter guys in the middle right now. That's fine. I want to see big, not just weight room big, but just big human beings. We need a big body wide receiver. Big part of Scott Frost's offense is making sure that they can go through and that they can get the screen game going. Stanley Morgan, a Noah was supposed to be that guy. Without a big body outside screen receiver, he's really hampered in that ability. We need to go out and get one of those. We need a big bruiser, Lyko Zigbo running back. A guy that's not afraid to throw it in the tackles. You look at every successful team, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Davis up for Minnesota, Penn State, Saquon Barkley a couple of years ago. I mean, all these guys have big bruiser running backs that aren't afraid to just pound it up the middle and let it get rolling. That's what I want to see in that regard. And then on defense, we need a big pass rusher. We need a guy that's going to consistently get back and get on the edge. We need one of those. We also need bigger linebackers that can hold up in the run game versus Big Ten schools. No offense against Colin Miller, Honus, or Barry, but I mean they're not that big, guys. They're not the 250-pound Devin Bushes that was for Michigan last year. They're not like the Chris Borland or the Taylors that used to play at Wisconsin. We need big linebackers that can thump with big offensive linemen. That's just the reality of it. And we're developing those guys. We're getting those guys. I look at a guy like Garrett Nelson, who's a young guy, but a big guy. And I think, okay, that's a guy we need to develop because he can do things like that. Colin Miller's a converted safety. He's doing a great job for us, but at the end of the day, he's still a converted safety. He needs to. He's not the natural linebacker. And then the big things we need outside linebackers. I'm talking edge guys, Von Miller, Khalil Mack-ish guys that can hold up against the run and rush the passer, so they don't have to come off the field. I think a guy like Anthony Barr that was at UCLA, he could do both. He's now in the league, one of the best highest played linebackers in the league. We need to find one of those guys, and you don't have to go get them off the recruit. You can develop them. There might be one on the team right now, but they need to just kind of find the switch and have it all click for them. And then the last thing we need is a kicker. Pickering, I don't know if he's going to play. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know what's going on. But in order to be a successful football team and win in the Big Ten, we need a kicker. So all in all, we're a very average team. I hope that we go to a bowl game this year, below average. And I will not judge Scott Frost's teams. I will not judge his teams until year 4. I know that sucks. I know it does. But I don't think we'll see a true product of what Scott really's vision for this team is until year 4. But we're going to see what the fight of this team is against Indiana. We're just going to see it. Let's rank, before we get out of here, let's rank from Big Ten and our Big Ten West where I plant Nebraska. Feel free to disagree with me. I want you guys, tell me if you think I'm bat crazy here. I want to know. But here's my top to bottom Big Ten. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Wisconsin. 3, Penn State. 4, Minnesota. 5, Iowa. 6, Michigan. Michigan State. Indiana. I have Nebraska at 9th. Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois, Maryland, and Rutgers. If I would have told you that we were going to lead the pack of the poop of the Big Ten at the beginning of the year, you guys would have laughed at me. But that's where we're at, guys. You go below 9, those are bad football teams. Are we a bad football team right now? Question's out. The question's out. Are we a bad football team? So that's overall in the Big Ten. Let's just look at the West. I have the West as Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois. Northwestern Illinois are below us because we beat them. Purdue, if they're healthy, they're a pretty good football team. They are. They got some bad injuries going on right now. They got some tough injuries on. They got some things going the wrong way for them. If they can get healthy, we got to go to Purdue. We got to go to them. They beat us a couple years back. I know we were playing, I think Tommy Armstrong was out, but they beat us. They've beaten us in the past. They've got some good players. I don't know. I easily could have switched Purdue and Northwestern there. I have Nebraska at 4th in the Big Ten West. I have it 9th overall in the Big Ten. We're not very good right now, guys. I hope they change my mind. But from when I take a step back and I take my fan hat off and I look at it from an analyst perspective, a numbers-based perspective, we're just not very good. And it kills me to say that. It does. It absolutely kills me to say that because I want them to be good so bad. Right now we're sitting at 4-3. We need to get to 6 wins to get to a bowl game. And I think that's the goal right now. I used to say 8. I don't think we win 8. I really don't. So let's look. We got Indiana coming up. I have us losing to Indiana. I think Indiana's an extremely talented football team on offense, very physical on defense. We're going to have a tough time unless Adrian might be 100%. If Noah's not 100%, I don't know what we do. But we're really, out of the bye week, that's going to be a very telling game, and I think we lose that game. I'm giving my prediction here for the next 5 games. I think we lose against Indiana. They're a good football team. Purdue comes in here. Their only 2 losses, by the way, are to Ohio State and Michigan State. I have both those guys ranked better than us. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we lose to Indiana. We go to Purdue. I think that I think we beat Purdue. I think we do. I think we get it together enough to beat a depleted Purdue team. I don't know if we blow them out. I don't know. I don't think we blow anyone out this year, but I think we beat Purdue. And then Wisconsin comes to town. I don't think we have any chance against Wisconsin right now unless we totally bounce back and we look like a totally different team than we did against Minnesota. Wisconsin's going to come in here and possibly steamroll us. It's at home, which gives us a little bit of hope, gives us a little bit of life because Nebraska, whether we're good, bad, or ugly, through all kinds of weather, we all stick together and we'll be in that stadium, 90,000 loud and proud, myself included. So I hope that we can compete against Wisconsin and not lay an egg. But I mean, they're allowing less than 5 points a game right now. Yeah, I didn't misprint that. They are allowing less than 5 points a game defensively right now, and they have the best running back in the country in Jonathan Taylor. That's a scary team. That's a scary football team that will be marching into Nebraska, probably unbeaten. Then we go to Maryland. Maryland right now looks awful. They started the season really strong. I thought they were going to be a pretty decent team, but I don't think they're very good. I think that we beat Maryland, but we got to be careful. That's a good team. They always put guys in the league. You always see Maryland guys in the league, but you never see them put a very quality product of a team together. So, I mean, they're always scary. They're a streaky team. You catch them on a good day, tough. If you don't, you usually can roll them pretty good. I think we beat Maryland, and then I think we take the L to Iowa, which I have too many Iowa friends to lose to Iowa. And so I really hope we get some magic and we pull some last game magic, Black Friday, the last Black Friday, Memorial Stadium for a while, and we beat Iowa. I really hope we do, but we might not. And if we don't, I'm going to be upset. So those are my two, which gets us to 6-6. It does. That gets us to 6-6, and that's us spending New Year's Eve in Detroit or the Idaho Potato Bowl. But it's not as much about the bowl game right now. It's about the practices for the bowl game. We need every opportunity to be on the field as we can. And when you lose that month of practice, it's tough. It's tough for a team. It's tough for a team to really kind of get better when you don't have that month of practices. So I think it's really important that we get that month, get to a bowl game, play against a team that probably ranked very similar to us, and try and get a win and get a big bowl going. Cookie says, let's get to the Red Box Bowl. I'm in for any bowl. I want to go to any bowl. So I think that's got to be the goal, is to get to a bowl game, let these seniors go out. I mean, the only people that have been to a bowl game on this team, guys, are the guys that went to the Nashville Bowl with Tommy, where we beat by Tennessee. That was the last bowl game we've been to, and these seniors were there, fifth-year seniors. Other than that, these guys haven't sniffed a bowl game. That's not good. That's not good for recruiting. That's not good for your players. That's not good if you're looking to go to the NFL, because the NFL wants winners. They do. I don't care how talented you are. If you don't know how to win, the NFL sometimes doesn't have it. So I'm really hoping that we can get to 6 games and get to a bowl game this week, guys, because that's something that we're going to have to be able to do. A couple more questions here before we wrap up is we have 3 NFL. Melissa wanted to ask, we have 3 potential NFL players on defensive line. Why couldn't they stop the run? What's wrong with the O-line? Could they make a big jump going into next season? We touched on all that a lot, but I just want to say the 3 potential NFL players, they are. I think the Davis brothers and Darian Daniels can play in the NFL. I think they're late round picks at best, maybe preferred free agents. But if you don't play sound defense across the board, it doesn't matter how talented you are. Unless you're a Von Miller, unless you're Aaron Donald, it's really, really hard. It's really, really hard to be as impactful individually than if it was for a guy like a late round guy who's more of a system guy, which the Davises and Darian is. Team Diesel asks, as a lineman, what types of run plays did you just love to run? I personally, I love to run zone scheme. I think zone scheme's great. You can cut a defense. It's displacing guys, defensive linemen laterally. You don't allow them to go forward because gaps are moving. You're moving the A gap, B gap, C gap over 2-3 yards. So defensive linemen and linebackers have to stay in their gaps. So instead of moving downhill, they got to move laterally. And as an O lineman, if you're athletic enough, be able to move and keep those guys out of their gaps. There's big gashes, big creases. I ran that system in Minnesota with Dalvin Cook, and I ran it in Buffalo last year with Shady, and I ran it in San Diego when we had Ryan Matthews, and then we ran a ton of zone here with X. And so I think that is those are the plays that I love to run. So wrapping up here, let's give away our game balls. For me on offense, I gave it to Noah Vedral. Thought he played his balls off. And I gave it to Cam Jurgens because I don't think there was a bad snap. It was really bad weather. Again, I was on the field. I think those two played solid ball games individually. I think that those two guys played solid ball games individually, but again, it's a team game. But I wanted to recognize guys that I think played well. On the defensive side, I didn't give it to anyone because the guy who had the best game was Lamar Jackson, and even at that time, I thought that there was times where he struggled too. I mean, he got beat deep on one where they just overthrew a guy, and I don't think anyone played well collectively or individually. So I don't think that it was fair to give any of those guys game balls. And then lastly, it's my update for my 2019 NFL career. Actually, I hate to say it, guys, but I'm going to let you guys know. This is the first time I'm saying it. I'm having surgery on Wednesday. So my 2019 NFL career is done. It's put on hold. I have to get another tendon attached in my ankle. So I'm having a second surgery. So best prayers and wishes are greatly appreciated through that, guys. There won't be a show next week. Bye week. I'm going to be recovering from surgery, so there will be no Just My Opinion next week. But I do plan on being back the following week, giving you guys the great content that you love here so much, and I appreciate you guys. This has been a great show. Tons of guys in the chat bringing good thoughts, bringing big questions here. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends. Tell people to come stop by. Share it. We have a YouTube page, Just My Opinion, on there. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitch. And guys, I hope that the Huskers bounce back. I really hope they do. I hope they have a good bye week. They get away, they regroup, and they come out with their hair on fire. So go Big Red as always. And remember, guys, it's just my opinion.